Welcome everyone, let's call the meeting to order. And we have the minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any comments?
If there's no comments, I move to approve the minutes from the March meeting.
I second your move.
All those in favor? Okay, and then for the announcements, the next meeting is May the 26th. And are there any announcements from any other commissioners? Risa.
I just would like to share with y'all, with a heavy emphasis on Stu. I just today went through the complete process of electrifying the front house, my rental, and what that means. It means a lot of things, but the gas company is on the street right now. They are capping. Yes, I guess what I want to say.
That's Stu.
Welcome back, Stu.
Thanks.
What I wanted to say about the electrification process is that there's cost and several steps that a person needs to take. And I think it would be really important to document that process and make it available to people, because not knowing, I think, is a disincentive for wanting to try it. And I'm willing to guinea pig myself in terms of the steps and the costs that were involved with this particular situation. If we really want the public to get on board, they need to know what it's going to look like beforehand.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea, Risa. And having those steps in place are really important. And that aligns with some of the priorities around this SEEP implementation as well, because that's what we're looking for, is people to switch from natural gas to electric.
We want the rubber to meet the road.
Yeah,
So
so based on what Risa's saying, is there any way we could how we could document this? Is this something you could do in your area, Stu?
Yeah, the two things that come to mind immediately for me are we could do a little climate story thing on the website, a little profile, I think. Is that right, Bridget? That would work for this. And then we could also make an article for the article train that speaks to this story. You know, there's other places also, but those are the first two things I thought of.
Yeah, that sounds great, because then we start to document it for the website and for an article.
So I guess the first step would be, I just need to write down what I remember from the process, which began, you know, several months ago. And so once I get right down step by step, not necessarily the story, then I could share it with Stu and Bridget. Is that?
Yeah, and it could be structured as questions or in a way that's helpful for anyone who wants to pick up that kind of process.
All right, thank you.
That's great. Okay, are there any other announcements from commissioners?
I have 4. Starting with tomorrow, we're having our Rethinking Waste. Sorry, Bridget, if you were gonna mention this. At 1 o'clock, we're having a Zoom something called Rethinking Waste. And Risa and Bex and I will all be participating in that, and Bridget, of course. And so 1 to 2, if you guys are looking for something to do for lunch, want some really high level entertainment, lots of laughs, tune into that.
Yeah, it helps to digest lunch.
When you said lots of laughs, I was going to recommend something else, Jamie. Or the other thing is to also recruit people you know as well, because we're in this every day. So it's good to go to people that aren't well versed in this or typical audiences. That would be good.
Yeah, and I believe the link is on the website. So yeah, that's a positive thing we've got going tomorrow. And then this Sunday is the annual Firewise Green Debris drop-off day. That's the day where you get to look around for any brush that you have around your house that could potentially start your house on fire, and you get to get rid of it for free, which is a pretty good deal. So going out to the transfer station, that's out on Valley View Road, and the event is running from 8:30 to 3:30. So we are gonna ensure that people are honoring social distancing guidelines. They're opening up all the bays. So typically the areas where you would be able to dispose of trash, those are all gonna be open for debris. And yeah, and then third thing, the 8th, next Saturday, is the annual Jackson County's annual Household Hazardous Waste event. And that's where you get to get rid of all your stuff laying around your house, like rat killer and Windex and I don't know, that kind of stuff. So that event goes that's on Saturday, May 8th from 8 to 4:30. And then I just wanted to let you know, I don't know if I think there's still some available, but the city was issued a grant this year for the deployment of several 25-yard huge boxes that neighborhoods can apply for them. And it's for the same reason we're having the Green Debris Drop-Off Day. Neighborhoods can get together and throw all their debris in there and ideally reduce the risk of fire. So that is a program that you have to apply for. The bins are drastically reduced. Typically they're, I think, around $300, and they're reducing them by 80%. So it's just like $80 for the whole neighborhood to have an opportunity to, get the debris composted and reduce fire risk at the same time. So and that's it.
Thanks, Jamie. That's
Thank
great.
you, Jamie.
Is
How do you
that,
apply?
sorry, go on, Brian.
Jamie, how do you apply?
I could, if it's helpful, I think I could put the link it's on the city website. I could put the link in the chat if you'd like. Would that be the most helpful? Okay.
And also, do you put this information on your Recology Facebook page as well?
It's on the website right now, and it should be also on the Facebook page.
Okay.
But Recology, I can put both events. Actually, if you want to go one-stop shopping for sure, you can go to the website, and both events are on there right in front.
No, I was just thinking for people in the community, if they're watching this, or if they don't know to One Stop Shop, that it comes to them, and then so Facebook would come on their feed if they follow Recology.
Oh, yeah, I believe it is on there too, but I'll double check.
Okay. Great. Are there any other announcements from commissioners? Okay, and reports from members of other commissions. I'm not aware of any, unless Elizabeth or Stu, no different. Okay. And we don't have any written or oral testimony from the public. So we'll move straight on to reports and presentations, and Tonya for a council update.
Yeah, I don't know that there's much to update since our last meeting. Yeah, I don't, the council has been pretty much entirely engulfed in a couple of other issues. So we haven't really had much to talk about that has involved climate, other than we do have, there's an upcoming study session that will be on our water situation, and that could be of use to this commission, given that the county has declared a drought emergency already. And so that's coming up, and that's linked in many ways to the conversation around the water treatment plant and how we go about fixing its deficiencies. So that's, you know, that we did have that conversation about the treatment plant, but this other conversation more about this year's water situation is coming up. Yeah, I don't think there's any, I haven't seen anything else I think that's of particular importance at this point for this commission. Brian?
You on mute,
You're-
Brian?
Tanya or Stu, pertaining to the water issues, has Julie Smitherman's position been filled, or is it hodgepodge of different city staff adding to their already full buckets? Or
We actually still have Julie on contract. So for the time being, she's gone, but she's still helping us. My understanding is they're going to refill that. I think it's paid out of the water utility, so I think it's planned to be replaced. But, you know, Public Works would be the ones to know.
but do you know how long we still have Julie for?
I don't. Tanya?
Oh, Risa, did you have something?
Well, I actually saw Julie yesterday. She was in Ashland and she was working with Sierra. And it's my understanding that Julie's new position is with the Medford Water Commission, and the city of Ashland and Medford. Well, the city of Medford is very amenable to looking at our water issues regionally and is generously allowing Julie to work with Sierra and with the city, you know, when it's appropriate. So we're not at a total loss. We're at a partial loss. And I felt reassured about that. And we actually talked about a possible regional rainwater catchment gray water tour that could happen this fall if it makes sense. So we're not dead in the water, as the saying goes. I mean, I don't know what y'all know, but I just wanted to share word on the street.
Yeah, no, I think that lines up. One of the things that I think could be useful for this group is just a budget update. And so the budget that's been put in front of the budget committee is a budget that it's a 2-year budget, but it acknowledges the fact that we have to make some structural shifts between this first year of the biennial budget and the second year in order to deal with some structural budget issues that have been in the making for several budget cycles, and to kind of start on that path towards greater sustainability for the city's finances. And some of that structural conversation is going to look at regionalization of certain types of services that we offer. And I think that the water conservation question is potentially in that space. So right now we're paying Medford Water Commission so that we can use some of Julie's time. If it turns out that you know that position is still sitting there, and I think it's likely that it'll be filled again, at that point Julie can help bring the next person on and transition, which is otherwise we were sort of left having somebody come in cold. But the council hasn't yet figured out where all those regionalization conversations are likely to happen. We know they're going to happen with fire and ambulance type services. Right now, the city of Ashland is contracting and helping Talent with their policing. So there's a lot of conversations happening right now about what's the proper scale or the most effective scale for different types of service delivery. And so this contract, one of the things it does is it allows us to have some flexibility before we bring somebody else into a position in case we decide to restructure in some fashion. working more at a regional water conservation scale. So we don't know which way it's going to go, but the commitment is still definitely there for the water conservation element at the city. We just don't know exactly what it'll look like. But I said, hooray that Julie's not gone yet either. That was very good news.
I'm on mute now. Thanks, Tanya. And Stu for the staff update.
Yeah, sure. So that might be the Julie segue is a good one. We had the last Adapt Your Home webinar was featuring Julie, and we have that now on the city website, I think, or Bridget on the YouTube page, right? And then tomorrow's web meeting is on the city calendar for responsible consumption. It's been great. Bridget's done a lot of work putting those together, and I encourage you to help spread the word. It's been really nice, and it's also great that we have them recorded. So if you are curious, say, about what Julie said last week, you can watch that. Let's see, we've got a couple other little updates here. For the e-bike program, I've given out nearly half of those incentives. I expect the second half will close a little quicker than the first. And I've also done 17 electric vehicle incentives this year, so that's good. And I know that there are many more in process. We're going to have the 4 new chargers at the Grove are going to be fully turned on, hopefully next week. But they work now, and I think we're going to have them up on the website pretty soon. So those of you that drive EVs can go over there and charge up. There's still a couple little details to fix, but please enjoy. Also have good news about, I've been working with a couple of other nonprofits on basically what is a self-serve ride and drive program. And we set aside a little bit of the clean fuels funding as a partnership opportunity. And basically, we're all working on a grant together, and that grant has been awarded to Fourth Mobility. And so it looks like we're going to have this self-serve ride and drive project coming up hopefully before the end of the year, which will be really cool. The idea being that any utility customer can have a free reservation to go take the EV for a spin. And it's all COVID friendly, like you just go pick it up and use your app. So that should be pretty cool. Last week, we had the inauguration for the Food Co-op's new solar electric system, which is uses the virtual net metering policy and is now the biggest solar electric system in Ashland. So that was super cool. Just shy of 200 kilowatts. Also been working with Jim Hartman, some of the other folks. Now I think Brian's involved with the Ashland Solar Cooperative. They're looking to do more systems similar to that size. And so I think we can expect to hear more from them. Let's see, a couple other things. We're trying to cook up some new incentive programs for induction cooking, also for small electric engines. I think we've talked about before. Incidentally, those of you who are interested in the small electric engine yard tool stuff, drop me an email this week, please, because I want to try to have a little group think about that at some point. And I couldn't keep track besides Risa, who was interested in that. Let's see. So this is also super exciting. As you folks know, we've been kicking around different versions of a home energy loan program. And I see this as being a super valuable tool for us to actually move the needle in Ashland in a way that people who are ready to invest in their homes can do so and use the utility to repay a loan on their bill. Anyhow, we're looking forward to seeing that program expand a little bit. But the good news is that I applied for a loan from the USDA last year. Didn't hear much back about it. They told me there wasn't any funding left about 8 months ago. And I got an email not too long ago saying that our letter of intent was approved. So I now have access, I believe, to a huge pot of federal money to help push our home energy loan program. So that'll be forthcoming. Haven't spread the word too much about it yet because that's not official, obviously, but we basically have approval to get this funding. And I'm going to have to take a resolution before council real soon to get the application done. So probably before the end of May, we'll hear more about that.
Is that like a 5 or 6 or 7 figure huge?
$10 million. That's what we're looking at.
Whoa.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse or anything, but it's looking good so far.
That'd be quite a cart, quite a horse.
Let's see what we can do. And it's a good deal financially for the city. It involves us restructuring or remobilizing resources a little bit differently, but you know, the investment isn't coming from the city. We're just playing a role. So it would be.
And what's the main thing it's spent on?
This program would be geared towards home energy improvements, decarbonizing, hopefully, and just looking at building efficiency holistically. So you could do multiple different upgrades at the same time. You know, there's an opportunity, perhaps, I don't want to get too far out there, but there's an opportunity to run this in parallel with some of the wildfire mitigation lending programs that we've been talking about. The funding comes from a different place, but it's functionally similar. So, you know, we've got room for creativity here if we can find the political capital and consensus.
Yeah,
Okay,
if I
that's
could-
all.
If I can just add in to that last one, I am meeting with the Wildfire Safety Chair and a member of the Climate Policy Commission. We're meeting with Umpqua Bank tomorrow to talk about what that might look like, because it's a very similar conversation, as Stu mentioned, that's happening in the Wildfire Safety Commission around how do we get money into the hands of people who need to do different things, like cut down a dead tree, or you know, get their gutters covered, that sort of thing on the wildfire safety side of things. And it's exactly the same problem, that some homeowners can't access that money that's needed for them to make those improvements. And so they also have a major grant coming in. We've just gotten final confirmation that they got a $3 million grant from FEMA to help the 1,000 or so most at-risk homes for fire harden their homes. And so it's interesting, this really is these two sort of parallel tracks. So we're trying to figure out what's the easiest and best way, without a whole bunch of separate small programs, to be able to kind of send people who need funding to do a variety of climate related improvements to their homes, to be able to get that financing in quick and easy, and particularly to be able to get it into the hands of people who can't access traditional financing. So anyhow, there's a lot on the move with that, but it's super exciting that USDA grant is still in the works, and because that's been a big part of the problem, is where's the pot of money that guarantees this, or that we pull from, you know. So it's I think the pieces are coming together, and we're still waiting to see what it'll look like, but it's great news.
That's brilliant. Yeah, really good news. Thank you, Stu. Thank you both. So we'll move on to business. And I asked Elizabeth to have old business and new business brought together, because we were flipping back and forth between them. So I just feel it's all business at this stage. And so we start off with our monthly column in the sneak preview, and we have 2 approved. So the hazardous waste event that was sent, and then just to confirm between the last meeting and this meeting that the article that was approved at the last meeting, Risa, that was sent, because that was due to the sneak preview on the 19th of April.
Yes, so we're good for May, but we need wasn't there a next, I don't know what's next up for, because we don't have June covered. Or do we?
We do have June covered. So we're okay for May, and then there's an article on Adapt Your Home, still to be named, that's due for the packet on the 17th of May, and that was Bridget, Larry, and Marnie. But in light of what was just being said, is there another one we want to add in here in terms of step-by-step electrification into this timeline on what you've done to your home?
Not with me as the writer. My hand is buried below too many other things. I can't commit to it right now. I would be willing to do it one day, but not.
Okay, so let's add it on the timeline, because you're going to work with Bridget on what you've actually done
Yeah.
in terms of converting your home. So there might be material there that can be turned into an article.
Yeah, but I don't want to commit for
No. Okay, so let's add that on at the Elizabeth, if we could add that on for September, and just that we will have an article in some shape on switching from electrification to, no, from gas to electric, and have Risa down as assigned to, along with Bridget, because she's going to work with Bridget on the content for the website, and so that might help polish it. I appreciate, yeah, there will be a gap in terms of your time with us as well, Bridget, but let's just put that down there for now in for September 1. And then the next article due is Bridget, Larry, and Marnie on the 17th of May for some part of the Adapt Your Home campaign. I'm not sure if it's been decided what part.
We can reach out to you, Bridget, and we'll figure out what angle. Larry and I met about it a couple weeks ago, and we were just kind of all over on what angle that would be, but we wanted it definitely aligned with what the city wants to get out there. So we'll need to talk to Bridget to figure out where we want to go.
Okay, that sounds great. And Risa?
well, just process-wise, we're gonna have to move pretty fast. I'm gonna need to let Curtis know that it's gonna, because we've had them lined up, and this month is gonna be tight. So I will let him know May 17th, it needs to be approved by the commission before we can submit it to the SNEAK. So logistically, the commission meets on the 26th of May. And so what I would bargain with Curtis is if we approve it on the 26th, it means any changes need to happen on the 26th, and that I would then send it to him, which hopefully that will be enough time. So I'm just kind of warning Marnie.
So Risa, the one that Marnie, Bridget, and Larry are going to do is for July. We're going to do the Your Recycling Waste and More that we approved from Jamie for the June one that's due on May 17th.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
If that helps. So we should be good on time.
Okay. And the Jamie one we already approved.
Yep.
So let's give a little chuckle. We're good. We're laughing.
We're good.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry, it's kind of hard to keep up with all these moving parts.
I think you've got Jamie's one to submit, don't you?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you for rattling the cobwebs.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we were going to come back at this meeting with ideas. So we've got one more there in terms of converting the home. Were there any more ideas that anyone would like to propose that we can add to the timeline? It seems to be quite quick we move through. So if there's any that we can add in.
I would imagine by the end of summer, we're going to be in desperate water straits. Should we have something about water?
I think that would be a good idea. Yes.
Okay, I'll volunteer myself for that.
Could could I suggest, Brian, that you
Yeah.
reach out to Sierra that she isn't the new Julie Smitherman, but she's the person that's doing water conservation issues. It might be good maybe to touch base with her.
Is she city staff?
Yeah, I believe she's Public Works. Is that correct? I think I have her email. I will email you her and do a little intro thing. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
That's great. So we've added 2 more there. And we can come back to that at the next meeting then. Then the update on different channels for articles and future outreach. So I know you've been keeping an eye on this, Bridget. Do you have anything in terms of to say here? Has it all been going smoothly?
Yeah, I think it's been going smoothly, and I've been keeping track of how people find out about the events. So I'll have like a list of all the different ways that people found out about it, which is good. I also have some outreach postcards if anyone wants some of those to either put around at store bulletin boards or like just use it as a conversation piece with your neighbors. You can email me and we can coordinate that. Or if you have any content for Facebook, feel free to email me that too.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
And we'll go, if there's any other ideas about how we could do further outreach in terms of some of the content. I know we're getting more onto the website. We're getting stuff out via email, Nextdoor, Facebook. But just remember, it's good to get through as many channels as we can in terms of the information. And then next on the agenda is our SEEP project update, with first being responsible consumption and single use, which is myself, Jamie, and Risa. Does anyone want to kick off the update?
Our focus really has been, getting things ready for the website that I believe it's up. I can't say that I've actually gone there to see it.
I'm not sure if it's up because I had feedback from Stu that he was pretty content with all the initiatives that we'd gone through that are available for single use. I think we need to catch up with Bridget next, unless it has gone up. But the feedback we had from Stu was positive. For the benefit of the commission, in terms of the single use, the work we did was highlight all the different initiatives and so ordinances that are in Ashland in the state in terms of reducing single use, and then what you can do in Ashland, and then what you can do on an individual level. And we kind of set the context around the problem with single use, with plastic in the oceans, with consumption, responsible consumption. But I think it still needs some work before it goes up on to the website, unless, yeah, I had missed it if it had gone up. Bridget, had you had a chance to look at it?
Yes, I've looked at it and I incorporated some of the content into the website, just like some edits to that. But as a whole, the document isn't on the website at this time.
Okay.
Maybe if I could suggest that our, whatever we're called, subcommittee task force group, maybe we want to schedule a few minutes with Bridget. Would that be helpful? Just because that might help us guide us toward next steps.
I think that would be really helpful. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can do that away from the meeting.
Okay. Let's take that as an action then.
Okay.
Okay. Then the climate resilience group.
Yeah, so I guess as far as an update, we got the letter out to council, so thank you for all your help on that. And we've been just talking about what our main priorities should be and talking about what climate resilience means. And I think for all of us, climate resilience strongly includes renewable energy that is equitable, so that all different parts of the community have access. That is not necessarily just mitigation, because as soon as you give someone clean and cheaper energy, they're saving on their bills, they're much more resilient when other impacts come down from climate change. So it's, I know that there's been a little bit of just unclarity about what climate resilience means, but to our group, it does include clean energy, especially with the equity component to it. So we have been reaching out to find out more about the solar cooperative and to figure out if there's a role for us to be doing some outreach related to that, so that when it gets up and running, you know, we can have a bigger and faster impact, and also making sure that that piece also has a really big equity component to it. So we've talked about that. And then some of our other priorities just include outreach on the impacts of smoke for people's health, and also water conservation. So those are our main priorities right now. And we're moving forward with some of those. We want to make sure that they're well aligned with, you know, what Stu's priorities are and what the city needs us to be working on. So we want to hear definitely feedback on, is this the right direction, and is this is there basically a benefit to us working on these issues? So did I miss anything, Brian or James, you want to add there?
I thought that was a good summary. I know that for myself, I've been involved with Jim Hartman from the Solar Co-op, meeting with him, and also had a meeting with him and Stuart yesterday. And I think there will be a role as the Solar Co-op gets up and going, and perhaps if the stars line up right, and there could be maybe in parallel a city of Ashland clean energy project, and there'll be a big role, I think, for education to the populace from this commission about that, and we can be involved in that.
Hey, Brian, it's James. I didn't have a chance to meet with you. For some reason, I thought you were meeting at 3 o'clock the day that we were supposed to meet, but you must have met at a different time.
No, who, Jim Hartman and I?
Yeah.
We
North Mountain Park.
We met at North Mountain Park at 3 that day.
My goodness, that must have been in a different time zone. I was down there and texted you. Okay, so anyway, I just wondered if there was any conversation about the 10 by 20 when you were talking to Jim Hartman, and any kind of implications of that in this community solar thing.
Not specifically. We didn't specifically address that issue.
I can tell you that they're not very connected, and there's not much concern about 10 by 20 issues getting in the way of community solar, at least in the near term.
I think there's kind of a lot of background, just kind of getting their ducks in a row with thinking about how to write contracts, whether or not to partner with Solarize Rogue, which has been involved in the county, and for instance, I think was involved in the placement of a very large solar array on top of the Shakespeare Warehouse in Talent. So I think there's a lot of potential, but there's, I think, a lot of issues about how to raise funds. The one thing that I'm really encouraged about is we have a 10% commitment to social equity. So for instance, for instance, if you had 49 investors, they would pay for 54 shares. So basically 5 shares would go to no or low income housing. So that's really encouraging. I think that they're looking at that at the very beginning.
Risa, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask y'all's group whether if the timing was right, it would be appropriate to write an article for the Sneak about the solar cooperative, like when it gets closer. Is that appropriate or not?
I think it will be very appropriate and appreciated, but we just have to wait till Jim lets us know that they're ready for that kind of publicity.
Okay, well, I just, sitting here wearing the hat I do, oh gosh, what a great article.
Yeah, I think that's a real potential for us to do that and be involved in getting the word out. But I think it is, at least, I certainly don't have an understanding of it all well enough to write it. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if the board members feel they'd like to get it more solidified before they get the word out.
Yeah, I don't want to rush it. I was just putting a bug in your ear.
Yeah, we'll talk to Jim about that and make sure that he knows we're available to make that happen.
Thanks.
And the next project is water use and conservation. Larry's not with us today. I hadn't heard from Larry. So we'll keep that on for the update next month. I think it's going to be interesting discussions over the next over the summer months, as you highlighted, Brian, saying it would be good having an article in this area. I know that it's definitely a major part of my discussions here at SOU at the moment as sustainability manager and the water shortage that we're facing. So next agenda item, and just before going on to the next agenda item for chair and vice chair nominations, I just wanted to draw the attention to when the agenda was sent out, part of the email from Elizabeth was just reminding us as commissioners what the rules are in terms of, well, yeah, I guess they are rules in a way in terms of meeting participation. So I just wanted to check that everyone had had the chance to read that in terms of being present, being at the meeting, not double booking and trying to multitask, and because there were just quite a few comments over the past few meetings about people leaving early, doing multiple things at once. So I just wanted to double check that everyone, it's really important you have like the 2 hours and everyone's here to participate in the meeting, and everyone had. Now we've got James twice. We have double presence from James.
Hold on, hanging up. I finally got back on. My computer just decided to update itself, so I got on the phone for a while. Okay.
Great. Okay. And so I just wanted to check everyone had a chance to read that from the email that Elizabeth put together. And if anyone's got any comments, that would be really helpful too.
Thanks for doing that, Elizabeth.
Okay. So moving on, so for chair and vice chair nominations, so usually we vote in chair in April from what I understand, and I was voted in July last year just due to that we had a pause due to the pandemic. So I've kind of split it in between April and July. And there is some flexibility here, but I have, for various reasons, I've been, energized, enthused, will continue to sit on the commission, but I'm going to stand down as chair of the commission. So we are looking for nominations or people willing to be chair. We could, if there are any nominations at this meeting, we could talk about it, or we could have a think. And if anyone wants to talk to me about it between this meeting and next meeting, and then we go through voting in a new chair at the next meeting. My reason, rather than wait for July, I'm on vacation visiting family in July. So I thought just for the smoothness and the transition to do it before July. And so I've kind of caught in between April and July, given we had the different timings. So yeah, so it's been, I can't believe it's been a year, and it's been an interesting experience, and I'll continue to be here, but looking for nominations for a new chair, or I don't know if the rules allow someone to put themselves forward, or if you have to be nominated, I'm not sure. But that's where this agenda item is. Risa.
So so I'm not completely clear. If there was someone I wanted to nominate, should I do that now, or should I wait until the next meeting? That is what I am unclear about.
I probably would like to hear what everyone else thinks there, because I've probably sprung this and I would want people to digest the information and to have a think if they're willing to be put forward. So if we nominate someone now, it would probably be a nomination, and to give everyone else some time to think about it. We've also got a missing member here. So I think it's fair in terms of having the nominations happen and the vote in at the next meeting, when we will have time to digest the information, think about what role they want to play, and go from there. Does that
I thought
seem...
that missing members get nominated and voted in.
I'm good with that. And yeah, I'd be happy to nominate those that are interested. If anyone wants to speak to me between this meeting and next meeting, definitely.
I had a hard time hearing what the end of what you were saying.
So I said I would be, like, if anyone wants to speak to me between this meeting and the next meeting.
Got it.
The nominations at the next meeting, if they're interested, to contact me.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Mani.
This is kind of related, but not on the agenda, but I just, at some point, it'd be nice to talk about getting our empty seats filled. And I don't know if we have to wait till the next meeting to do that, or if we have any room in this meeting to talk about that.
I think now is a good time if we're talking about roles and membership on, empty seats on the group. Let's talk about it all together. So we have chair nominations for the next meeting, and then let's talk about empty seats, because there might be some preparation we can do ahead of the next meeting. Have we got 2 empty seats at the moment?
Yeah, we have the school seat is empty, right?
Yes.
And then we have 1 other empty seat, or are there 2?
I think 1.
1, okay.
It was Marianne Moore's seat.
Okay.
Has been empty.
Is someone going to come from the school district, Stu?
They have said they don't have capacity until they're done with their bond, I think. So it would be nice to have somebody. It's probably worth checking in with them again, but I don't know that their situation has changed.
Bond's done though, right?
The bond is, but the construction's still happening.
And the other thing to check is reappointment dates as well for some of the members.
Is what?
Reappointment dates in terms of
Oh,
served.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Mani?
So I'm wondering, I know a few high school students that would be interested, and I know that they don't get to vote, I don't think, but I wonder if one of them would be at least a good interim school related appointment. It's slightly different than how we've done it before, but it seems nice to have some younger voices. So I just wanted to put that out there. And go ahead, Brian.
To that end, I think a month or 2 ago, Bex, I emailed you, there was a climate master program, and there was an SOU student who I think you said was a sophomore, Sarah, I think.
Yeah, she went.
And I'm wondering if she might be interested potentially and do it for 2 years until she graduates and goes on, and that might be something that would be good for her if she was interested in terms of grad school applications or something.
Okay, leave that one with me, because I work with her. So
I mean, what do you think? Do you think she would be a good addition? I mean, that would be a young person.
She's absolutely brilliant. She's outstanding. She works on projects with me, and I think she would be a great addition. She is being pulled in a number of directions right now with a number of opportunities, though. So I would yeah, I would really like to speak with her in terms of where she thinks she's better putting her energy and effort right now. But she has a number of opportunities being offered in the community and at the university right now. She's brilliant. I absolutely agree, Brian. It's a good suggestion. Tonya?
One of the things that we're having a conversation at council just about makeups of commissions and what the rules are. So for some commissions, they have so for CPC, there are 2 dedicated student slots. But apparently there's also just a general rule that says that any commission can put on non-voting students. So it doesn't, that the high school one, I guess anybody can put that on. We're going to work to try to get this more uniform across all the commissions. But I think you can pull that person, the high schooler, on, and they can have their own seat without in any way affecting the other one. And then the decision about the university student is one of the places where we're trying to figure this out, because it seems, in my mind, that if you have a college student, they should be able to vote. The main issue was that high schoolers are often under 18, and I think there's some state laws around whether they can vote in this kind of an advisory space. But we're trying to get that all worked out. So it's also the case that if any of you have any thoughts about what a general policy around trying to draw students into commissions should look like, voting, non-voting, that kind of thing, please let me know, because we are working on sort of a tightening up or a more uniform structure for how commissions do a number of things.
Thanks, Tonya. And James?
There's a woman who works for Rogue Foods Unites, and she's fairly young. She's very energetic. She's very interested. And so I've asked her for the May meeting to join on the back side of it, so she can see what's going on. And if she's interested, she'll put that forward to nominate herself.
That's great. Thanks, James.
Thanks.
And she's an Ashland resident?
Yes.
Mani?
James, it would be great to meet with her just more casually too. I'd be happy to do that and find out more about her. That would be good.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the high school, so it sounds like from Tonya that we can move forward a high school student. And I just wanted to see, I know there's 3 that potentially would be interested. I wanted to just get consensus here. Is it okay if I reach out to them and just see if that's something they'll take more seriously?
That's great.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm just wondering, Marnie, if has the CPC moved forward with getting their students? I'm just wondering if it would be wise to talk with them, if they're to, maybe if there's 2 that are potentials to go to that commission, and we took 1, if all 3 of them could then serve in a role.
Yeah, I can emphasize on our end that we're more the outreach arm and see if there's people that specifically want to do that. But we can also coordinate with CPC.
Risa?
As far as a regular adult to fill one of the seats, I reached out. Some of you may know Kate Kennedy. She was the science teacher at Ashland High School for many years. I've known her for many years, and I've wanted to invite her to consider the CPC or the CCOC. And I talked to her a couple weeks ago, and she didn't say no. So, she was a formidable science teacher for many, many years. And I thought about her, for this commission for many years, but I don't want to badger her, but, just keeping the idea alive. Just letting y'all know.
Thanks, Risa. So it sounds like we've got quite a few ideas here. Brian?
I'm wondering if it's possible, if there's any way that school district lifelong employees, like alumni, could be considered for the school district position, since we've, like, for the last 5 years, basically not had a consistent person from there.
Generally, the school district has to offer someone up, so we could ask them to see. It would also kind of have to work with, I guess, what, like the mayor is okay with as well, because she is the one who kind of vets the appointments to start. So we could look into it. We could either Stu and I can, when we reach out to them, to check in, see if that's an option.
That'd be great if we could get the one, Brees, I'm blanking on her name just from 10
Hey,
seconds.
Kennedy.
Kennedy, yeah, I know her, and she'd be great. And it'd be cool if we could get the school district seat that we can never fill for a long term to have to be her.
But she wouldn't actually be I mean, her roots are embedded in the school district, but she wouldn't really be fulfilling that same role in terms of what, say, Jim Hartman used to bring to monthly meetings about, current things that are happening in the school district. A person that isn't in the school district isn't going to be dialed in the same way.
I completely understand that, but the school district's been derelict in giving us somebody.
Oh, yeah, I know. We can't solve their problem for them, though.
Marnie?
I just want to, my last word on this, if we could try and get a lot of this moving in the next month, so that next month we have some results, I think it would help us kind of re-energize this commission, especially as we come out of COVID and get back into taking a lot more action than we have. So that'd be great if we put the time in this month.
Do the nominations have to go to the mayor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the applications go to the mayor. I think she, with COVID, just speaks with them, and then it does have to go before a council to confirm the appointment. So think of that. We have to get to a council meeting.
And Marnie, these students would have some more time, another year or 2 or 3 of school.
Yeah, I think they're sophomores and maybe 1 junior.
Tanya?
Just on that, Marnie, the Climate Policy Commission's high school slot is open right now. So when you talk to them, if you can just let them know both section, both of these commissions have a place for them. Then if you have more than one that's interested, then we can find a place for the second one.
Great, thank you.
Yay.
That's great. Okay. So anyone that's suggested to follow up with your contacts and speak to students. Jamie?
Periodically, I'll run into somebody who says, I noticed there was an open position on your commission and I applied and I'm just waiting to hear. And I'm just wondering, is there a backlog of, this is a question for Elizabeth. Is it like I don't really know what to say to the person. Like, yeah, if you didn't hear anything within 2 weeks, I guess you didn't make it or whatever. I don't know,
Yeah, I was more involved in the process when Mayor Stromberg was in office because I had to do his schedule, but my role's changed and Mayor Akins has, a few other things going on. So she's a bit more busy. I would just recommend them to reach out to the city recorder, Melissa. She intakes all the applications and is usually in contact with Mayor Akins to see what's going on. Like with COVID, it's been really hard because, what used to be you meet with the mayor and have a conversation and then you meet with people on the commission. I think it's been a little bit harder to get a hold of people and just, you don't meet people. So I guess the best thing would be follow up with the city recorder. She can always send a reminder to the mayor. And yeah, sorry for the delay, but it's been a big switch over.
Totally understandable.
So based on what Jamie said, we don't actually really know. There could be 1 or 2 people in the pipeline. And it sounds like if we meet someone and they say, hey, I would do that. I think we need to emphasize that that the process is that you fill out the application, you give it to the city recorder, and then a week later you contact the city recorder again. And it's like something you have to keep the flame alive, or maybe it gets pushed to the back of the bus.
I agree, Risa. Yeah. So for all we know, these seats have been tried to be filled. We don't know.
Yeah, we have no clue. Is it reasonable, Elizabeth, that you could check in with Melissa and get a sense of whether there has been any interest and whether or not there are people in the pipeline?
Yeah, I could check in. I could check in. The thing is, if there are people, it's still, kind of up to the mayor. So I don't know what, she's been through, if she's talked to people and not felt that they were able to make the time commitment or would be good on the commission. So I think it might be kind of, I don't want to just shove it off, but it might be worth at least telling the people who do apply is like, hey, you might have to check up on this a few times through the city recorder or through the mayor directly. I think the city recorder is at least organizing the list.
Could you?
Yeah, I could get names. Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, could you check if any of the applications are being followed up though? Because I'm reluctant to encourage people to reply and take the time to fill in an application if these are not being looked at. So can we do that to see if there's a process in place?
Yeah, I could check in with Melissa to see who might be listed, and then I could probably just email you guys.
That would be really helpful because
the whole commission, before next time.
Go out and enthusiastically encourage people to come and re-energize. I would like to know that they're going to put time, that what they put time into is actually part of a thought out process. Yeah.
Right. And I'll check in with Melissa too.
I'm only saying this because if Jamie's heard people have applied and they're not getting any feedback, I also don't see their role as the nominees to chase an application. I think they've gone quite a fast step by filling in an application. I think it's the responsibility of those that are managing the process to then, acknowledge that application.
Great. And I'll also ask Melissa if there's a better way for everyone to follow up with her than what I just told you, because that might be good advice as well. So
that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's great. And we're going to cover, and we'll keep that on the agenda for next month. Hopefully we'll follow up applications in the meantime, like Marnie suggests, but in terms of chair nominations, we'll cover that at the meeting next month. And hopefully we have some willing volunteers. So the next item is the project list that was just trying to bring some coordination to everything happening and coming our way, our own projects, and then what we're working on joint with commissions. So I received, I think, one update to the project list, so I've resubmitted it, and I hope everyone's had a chance to look at it. I think there's a few things that have come up at this meeting, and we have to start thinking about, where we put our efforts and what we do. There is also requests, and we've got this later in the agenda, in terms of more coordination around our outreach work and what we're focusing on. So I don't know if there's any comments on this. Are people finding it useful just to keep a running list of what the kind of requests that are coming forward are, Risa?
Is this the appropriate time for one of the things on the list? I do have an update from Ashland Hardware. I don't know if this is the time to communicate that.
Yes, because it's not on the agenda. So I know that it was in the minutes of the last meeting that there might be an event in spring and that you would keep us posted. So we should definitely,
Okay. Well, let me know and I have an update.
Okay. Yeah, good for it. What is it?
Right now. Okay. I called Kathy at the hardware store, and she said that due to COVID, it just isn't possible for them to host an event in the spring. And so now they are pushing it. They think they would like to make it happen for the fall. And so that's the update.
Okay,
So, yeah, it's just to plan an outdoor event, inviting people. It's, you know, business is not ready to do that unless they're serving food. So, meaning a restaurant, not the hardware store.
thanks, Risa.
So I'll stay on it, and, you know, it doesn't take, you know, very much of my time. So I will monitor it. And when there's news, you'll hear about it second.
Okay. Are there any comments? Are we finding this list overwhelming, or can we manage it for now? So there is in the pipeline with the coordinated campaign that we're going to come on to discuss, and also the CPC work on the implementation. Those areas might grow, so we might have to take a more structured, coordinated approach. On the final one there in the list, number 11, I received an email to review the draft urban land use and transportation, and so this will be circulated ahead of the next meeting and then on the agenda at the next meeting for our discussion. So that's been sent through to me to review, and I'll send it out for the next meeting. Yes, Brian. Did you want to say something, Brian?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry, I like clicked on attachments, and where is the list?
It's the link is in the agenda under business, and then 6.5 project request list.
But my thing's not highlighted with like a hyperlink. So you said there is a list for us to look at?
Yeah, you might have to scroll down. It's not the attachments button. It's just in the regular agenda where it's written out. The blue letters are linked to things.
Okay,
Does that work?
let me see.
Oh, James has just put the link in the
Chat.
chat.
Okay, thank you, James. Okay.
Okay.
Are you looking then for somebody, for a person from this commission for number 10?
Yes.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
I can talk with you separately about how you'd like me to do that, or I could reach out.
Yeah, that sounds good, because they're working on the implementation, and I've been having a few catch-ups just with Rick in general, so that would be really useful, Brian. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a note to get in touch with you, Bex.
Okay. Risa?
Well, it makes me think about 20 is plenty, and it isn't on the agenda and it isn't on that list, but maybe next month someone could update us about where it is.
Yeah, I don't think it's moved since we voted on the motion, and that's why. So yeah, these things we do need to keep an eye on. If they do need to be updates, I guess we can have them as updates, small updates in terms of from the commissioners. But yeah, that's a good point. We need to keep an eye on how we update them. Brian?
So I was involved with that, Risa, and I've not gotten any recent like emails from Linda Adams or the other folks that were involved with that.
So might you touch base with her in the next month so that when we meet next month, you know, maybe there's a 5-minute, 2-minute, what's up with 20's plenty, where it is in the process?
Sure, I can do that.
Thanks.
Okay. And then that brings us on to coordinated campaign. Tonya, I'll hand over to you for an update.
Yes. So we had a meeting with the chairs of the CCOC, the Climate Policy Commission, the Transportation Commission, and the Wildfire Safety Commission. And Stu was also part of that conversation about what an integrated resilient Ashland, climate resilient Ashland engagement and outreach campaign might look like. It would be basically a program more than a campaign that would each year involve, 11 different months of actions that people would take. Depending on which month, it would be either on the adaptation side or on the mitigation side. So we're moving that along. We've got a newest iteration of the concept piece. And hopefully we'll be talking with the individual commissions about the details of that to see if there's interest in moving that forward at the end of the current campaigns and then into next year. Bex and Risa, are there any particulars that you think we should cover?
In my notes, like just a takeaway that was really valuable to me was the distinction that was made between outreach and engagement. I really appreciated that. I'm not really sure who it was that communicated it, but outreach being a more one-dimensional communication with someone, and engagement involves the back and forth. And it seems really important in our work that we up the ante on the engagement piece. There is absolutely a place for outreach around these various issues that impact the climate, and the part that puts people with one another in a back and forth conversation, I think takes understanding to a higher level that is worth aiming for.
Can I comment on this? So that was a comment Rick made at the meeting, and Rick and I have had long conversations on this as well, and I know Tanya and I have touched on this, and distinguishing the roles of, in terms of, to get my head around it, the roles around CPC and Conservation and Climate Outreach Commission. To me, so engagement, a really key word there for me is policy engagement. So policy engagement should definitely be two-way and very, very early on in the process in terms of development of policy. So you can do that from surveys, do that from workshops, discussions, and it definitely is two-way, because you want to hear back from the community, from the citizens of Ashland, from organizations, businesses, to help influence that policy. And then very much the space that I feel this commission sits in is outreach. And that outreach, yeah, that can be a conversation two-way, but it's also raising awareness about what the city is doing once it gets to that point. So in terms of the programs that Stu runs, in terms of awareness around wildfires and all of that. And that's how I distinguish it in my head. So I think it's really important to say, yeah, one is outreach and one is policy engagement, because engagement can be a whole different way, but definitely policy engagement should be two-way.
I would want to throw out that outreach, that once the information is conveyed, then there is the opportunity for the engagement, which I think deepens the connection and understanding. That to me, it's sort of like, I put it in a higher goal. We need both.
Yeah, but I think in the context of this, it was about engagement to develop policy, which definitely has to be two-way. and then outreach,
Okay, yeah,
education and awareness.
I didn't thank you for that, because I just latched onto the part that I really liked.
Well, and I think, when we think about this integrated outreach and engagement program, it's right now it's in its conceptual phase, and the work that needs to be done next is to decide, is this something that these various commissions want to work on with city staff, particularly since we're hoping to get another rare AmeriCorps person coming on next year to help us again, and to continue the good work that Bridget has started. One of the things that we will need to be thinking about is, what are all the different elements of engagement that we want? So we know what the city offers. We have new programs that we're hoping to have come online, but there's also, feedback loops. And I don't know whether that's in the general public space or if that's with people who engage with those programs, but we need to be finding out how well they're working. And if there are obstacles when somebody moves towards a program and then they get stuck for some reason, we need to know what those are so that we can work to remove those obstacles. And so there's a number of places, and there's a number of different ways that engagement can take place. And we're looking at a variety of ways of leveraging some of the elements that the city already has, that the commissions already have, and how could we do and lift an integrated campaign that doesn't leave it on the shoulders of any particular commission, right? And so that's the interesting piece is, how could we all be pulling in the same direction, have it very coordinated, and each commission has a section of work that is fully manageable within their commission and their commission is excited about. And so that's where we're at with it. And my hope is that each of the commissions will be having a deeper conversation around the specifics of the concept, hopefully in this May timeframe. The Wildfire Safety Commission, their spring wildfire safety campaign ends at the end of July. So part of the thinking is that we could potentially put together outreach and engagement programming for the rest of this year, starting in August. And then in that process, figure out what does the full launch look like for January of 2022 in terms of a more formalized, more structured, laid out annual campaign. So those would be the conversations that we would be having initially, is what do we do for the rest of this year? But then behind that is, what does it look like going forward? Right.
I'd kind of like maybe people to look at the agenda and go to the very bottom where it says kind of the charge of what the Conservation and Climate Outreach Commission is, powers and duties generally. And I've brought this up before, but what I heard Bex and maybe Risa say is that they certainly think they're in agreement that part of our charge is educate and advocate for Ashland's community climate recovery goal. But our powers and duties generally also include B, which is make recommendations on strategies, actions, and programs related to the wise and efficient use of resources. So I'm just wondering, do you folks think that that's part of our charge also?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, in this, well, in an integrated campaign like this, and each commission would have to figure out what they think their appropriate role is. And I think there's a particular conversation for this commission, because it's in your charter, the education and the recommendations around programming, because this integrated effort could be a really good way to find out from the public how, what it is they need to take the actions that they're being asked to take, how the existing programs are working, what recommendations might be made for new programs or for changes to existing programs, this might very well be a mechanism that could be really important for both sides of that charge. Does that answer your question, Brian?
Oh, I think so. I think when I guess I still, I mean, I completely get that it's part of what we do is educate and advocate. But when you talk about making recommendations on strategies, actions, and programs, I'm trying to think, what have we really done in that regard? And I just don't see how it's clearly delineated between what we do in that regard versus the CPC. So, you know, we strategize, like who's going to make the recommendations to strategize on getting a different renewable energy portfolio for the city, or actions on who's going to make the recommendations for actions on mitigation for hot summer and smoky days and that type of thing. So I just I think that it is not clear who, when you talk about specific strategies and specific actions and specific programs, whether it be you know, getting LED lights in every, you know, lights fixture in town, or whatever you want to do, you know, whose responsibility is that? Is that those kind of programs ours, or the CPC, or we need to work that out?
I think that's a great segue into the next agenda item, Brian.
Okay.
But before we go there,
and I would like to kick that off, commenting on what you said. Did you have something on the coordinated campaign before we move on, Risa?
yes. Tanya, I think it would be helpful. I know this is like an organic process of trying to hear from different commissions about their various perspectives. And I think that for me, and maybe for us as in the CCOC, if there was a way to like put down on paper, or, you know, on a computer screen, of a vision that would include just a draft of a draft of a draft that would show, you know, who the commissions are that are directed, you know, that are the initial focus for this coming together idea, with some of the ideas that were discussed the other day and what you talked about today about, you know, not a campaign, but a program that would span 11 months, and just some kind of examples that might integrate, you know, what wildfire is doing right now, not wildfire, the Wildfire Commission or whatever it's called, just to concretize it, just to make it, because, right, it's just this, you know, amorphous idea, and maybe it would be helpful to kind of see it framed up more. And then we could take that and we could say, well, so, you know, we can commit to 3 of those 11 months by when we see ourselves doing X, Y, and Z, or, you know what I mean? Because I think it feels too vague to vote up or down at this point.
Well, I don't think anybody's being asked to vote anything up or down. I'm wondering if the concept piece that I put together ahead of our last meeting is, if there's something about that you think needs to still be drilled down, or if that's would be something to share with the commission.
I think anything is a good starting point.
Yeah.
And to share that with, you know, all the commissions that are going to be a part of this idea, because we're building this together We haven't done this before. We're trying to come up with something that makes sense, that finally, from my seat on the commission, begins to integrate our work with other parts of the city, and that we can join in and get on the same page more.
So I think that the document that that has been moving around the different chairs of the 4 commissions that would be involved with this, I think it's probably at a level of refinement where it makes sense. I think it didn't make sense to send it out initially without the chairs at least discussing what they thought might be reasonable. But I think it's probably ready to send out to the commissions, the full commissions. And so I'm happy to do that. It's on my computer and I've updated it since we talked on Tuesday. So I'm happy to send that out. And maybe that's the preparation for a deeper discussion at the May meeting.
That would be great. Good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll go back to the segue with Brian. Yes, so it keeps coming up, and I know we had it on the agenda last time and we didn't have enough time for it, so we wanted to keep it on the agenda. So I have catch-ups with Rick on the CPC and also climate implementation and delivery in Ashland around the SEEP. And I think it's really, okay, one thing, there is so much to do. There is so much to do and we're behind. And so we need to figure out a way that we can work together. There might be ways in the future that we need to look closely more at how the commissions are working, how we're integrating climate change across all the commissions. And I have voiced these views numerous times in terms of how SEEP is considered. But at the moment, we have 2 commissions. One is charged with the development of policy and the implementation plan, and that's very much a crude nutshell of CPC. And the other one is charged with outreach. And then, of course, as you've highlighted, the recommendations on strategies, actions, and programs. Initially, at the beginning of this year, when I came in as chair, I asked for projects to come forward that would link to SEEP, that would link to economic resilience and diversity in Ashland, because we were facing a crisis in terms of the pandemic as well. And so it was all about that. And the projects were put forward and we voted on them. We also had in mind that there was quite a strong mitigation focus in terms of what the implementation development of policy was in CPC. And so some of the ones that came forward here were water conservation, climate resilience, which does mean different things to different people, the world. I'm not just talking about Ashland, I'm talking about the world. I very much come from a background where climate resilience is adaptation, and I'm having to adapt my own mind that in Ashland it possibly is wider than that. So I'm on that curve after 20 years. And then also I've said water conservation, single use and consumption, which is another thing, not CPC. I've had numerous conversations with Rick, and it's clear we need to take a more coordinated approach and support where they are at the implementation and then take it to the outreach stage. So for example, if they're focusing on the development of policy around switching from natural gas to electrification, we then ask ourselves, what is their role in terms of that two-way policy engagement? And then what is our role in terms of the implementation for the outreach of that? And how can we work together and complement each other? And as 2 commissions, I don't think we're there yet. And I think we could be far more powerful in the way we're working together. And so I like your comment, Brian, but I would probably turn it back on its head and say, rather than separating what we do, what we are supposed to do and what we're charged with, it's how what we're charged with could complement each other. And if there's a gray area, there's a gray area, because you know what, there is so much to do here. So I think we started a year ago, and I hope I started a year ago with structure. I wasn't familiar with all of CPC's work. I've become far more familiar over the year in terms of how they're approaching the implementation plan. How I've been quite strong, like we're outreach, their policy engagement. We can't, if they're charged with policy, we can't do all their policy engagement work because it's too ivory tower development, and that does never work for policy implementation if you've got ivory tower development and you're not out there on the ground understanding exactly who these policies impact. So I've always been quite strong on that front. So I think we need to think about going forward. We have our project list, but I definitely think those last two, not the last two items on the project list, number 9 and number 10, so the coordinated campaign and the interaction with CPC, are probably the two most important things that this commission can do, as well as where we're going with all the other distinct projects. But actually, in terms of reorganizing ourselves as a commission, those two things are the most important things we can do to start taking a far more coordinated approach with the resource we have as a commission and with others, working with others in Ashland to do this. So I think we need to start becoming more familiar with what CPC are focusing on, where the timeline is in terms of policy engagement, policy development, and then outreach. How can we raise awareness in terms of what incentives are available, what information does everyone need in terms of education, knowledge, and how we can work together there. But honestly, I don't think in terms of our coordination, I don't think we're there yet, and we're getting things come in at us. And I think that's why I think I started the project list, and I think there's so much space for different work here. But that's kind of me teeing up this agenda item. So based on what I've said and what you were saying, Brian, have you got any further thoughts, or does anyone else have any comments on the interaction with CPC?
I have a logistical question. Is Richard Barth, is he changing? Is the CPC changing their chair like we are?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Risa?
Based on what you just said, Bex, an example of CPC working on policy, the subject matter being gas to electric. The article that I'm going to work with Bridget on is, I think, an example of what we're talking about, because programming, incentivizing, that sits more with the CPC, and the communication of how it might look is represented in the creation of an article that goes out to the public that is an example of what it looks like in the CPC chair and what it looks like with the CCOC. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, I mean, I didn't mean to do it, but that, you know, that's just kind of.
Absolutely. So imagine if that was coordinated between both commissions. I think it would be pretty powerful in what we could achieve.
I just was, you know, we talk about things, but it's also helpful to really bring them, you know, right in the dirt with real life, mm-hmm. Not theory, but actual practice. So that's an example of theory and practice.
And then the recommendations on strategies, actions, and programs. So for example, the draft urban land use and transportation review for SEEP implementation has been sent to me to circulate to everyone. That's CPC asking for CCOC, asking for our view on what they're proposing and what they're engaging in terms of policy development. But what I will ask specifically is not only what they're proposing, but what impact is it going to have on our outreach role, so that we can go back to CPC and say that. James.
So, Tonya, back to you around this coordination thing. I've been thinking a long time about the two commissions and how there could be some sort of work plan that could be developed that would pass on based on milestones of something like what Risa, you were talking about, having milestones for outreach that are coordinated with maybe policy development that would tee off or queue up that opportunity then to be more interactive with the public. So there's first it's teed off with here's gas to electrification. And it's already agreed to that once we as a CCOC get that done and outreach to in different ways that we can, then maybe the CPC takes on a more interactive thing with the public. And so, Tonya, is what you're doing kind of running along that line? Because it's, you're involving other commissions, but this seems like that kind of thing.
I think that that's a possibility. How it actually, the details of it, I guess, are not yet worked out. But I think that that's definitely a possibility. One of the things I think that has always been a little bit confusing is this question around the engagement that the CPC does, and how does that happen? Does it do it by partnering with CCOC? Does it do it in some other side project? And so I think there is value to coordinating with the development of annual work plans between the two commissions, so that in the places where they connect and where we're working together, it's locked into both work plans, and it doesn't come as a surprise where suddenly there's a request that comes over that the other commission's not expecting. I think that there is value in doing some of that thinking ahead of time, and hopefully some of that thinking could then move into this this integrated outreach and engagement program. There might be elements of that CPC does and other elements that CCOC does, but I think the big important piece in all of this is integration. And one of the things that is going to be coming forward in terms of this larger conversation around the commissions is, what does the structure look like when a commission comes back in front of the council every year with its annual report and its plan for the next 12 months? And I think right now it's pretty, we get all sorts of annual reports, and some of them have clearly detailed plans for the new year and some of them don't. And so what I think we need to do is have more discussion at the council level, so that the council really understands what the commissions are digging in on. And then to the extent that that you can see where the puzzle pieces fit between these two commissions, I think that's going to be a really important part of this going forward as well. Because I think there's not only is there confusion among the commissions, there's confusion among the council about what these two different commissions do and how they do or don't integrate with each other. And some of the work that this commission does is totally separate from what Climate Policy Commission does. Same thing for Climate Policy Commission, but there are places where they do link, or they could link, and maybe could be, both sides could be made more effective in those places where they can work together. Does that answer your question, James?
Yeah, thanks.
Are there any other comments on this agenda item? Okay. Well, are there any other comments on anything? And for the wrap up, any items to be on future agenda?
We've been mentioning things along the way.
Yep. So they'll be on there. Monty?
I was just going to suggest, again, when they're ready, but asking Jim Hartman or one of the other partners on the solar co-op to come in and give us a short presentation on what they're doing. But I'll ask Jim and we'll figure out what the best timing for that would be on their end.
There's quite a few items on the next agenda, but let's definitely do that because maybe it will be the following one. Okay.
Sounds good.
Great. Right.
Bridget, I sent you something in chat. I'm wondering if you could take a look. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll send you the stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good to see you all. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll be in touch, follow up our actions, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
Thanks, y'all.